Hello, Professor. This is the video from Yanjie Zhang for my final project. And this is my Mac. I'll use remote desktop to connect to my PC. And this is my PC. Let's see the demo first. You can see 5 different models: cube, tetrahedron, and a model like diamond, sphere, cylinder, and every model has 5 different instances using different shader, the color shader, a wireframe shader, a texture shader, and a texture with a light shader, and a constant color with the light shader. And yeah, and I have 4 cameras. This is you can press 1, 2, 3, 4 to switch camera, and this is camera 1. This is camera 2. It is rotated by y-axis. And this is camera 3. It is rotated by x-axis. And this is camera 4. It is closer to this special object because I add 2 more object goes around this bigger object. It's like the sun and the earth and the moon. Okay, let's see the code. Okay, let's start with the texture. I add a texture manager for texture, and in the texture, every time you create a new texture or you delete a texture, it will call a function from the texture node. Actually, the texture node is the one. The texture node is the one who is holding the data. And the texture node has a retain count. Every time you call the release, the retain count will be decreased, and the retain will increase the retain count. So, and in the texture manager, I have a delete all used textures function, and every time you call this function, it will delete the texture node whose retain count is 0. So in my code, I just need to use the texture, new texture, and delete it. I don't need to know the things in the back of them. And okay, next is the shader. I think my shader is almost the same as yours. I add a function, add a set active function in the shader object manager. And in this function, in set active function, I set the project matrix and the view matrix uniforms. So I don't need to set it in the graphics object every time. Okay, next is model. I don't use cube model anymore. I just use model and the model XUN. Like the sphere or the cube, I think just the vertex data is different. I don't need to write a sphere model or cube model. And in the model XUN, I can load the model from the file. Oh, and I add a draw function. The graphics object will call this function in his code. So, and the graphics object don't need to know how many elements in the model. Just call this draw function. And this is the model file loader. Just load the file and load the data into the memory, and this is the model file converter. I use it to generate the data. Like this is the cube, this is the tetrahedron, this is the diamond, and this is the function to generate a sphere. It spent me a whole day, I think. And this is the function to generate the cylinder. This is the function to write the data into a file. Okay, and the input is, I think it's the same as your code. And the graphics object, it looks it looks familiar to your code to adjust I. Yeah, I removed the shader in the constructor because every graphics object has its corresponding shader. So I think I don't need to add, I don't need this parameter to construct a graphics object. I just load it in the constructor. And here in the draw, I just call the draw function in the model. I don't need to know much more about model here, and I don't need to set the uniforms, set the project matrix and view matrix uniforms here every time, because when the shader is active, the uniforms is already set. Okay, next, game object. I think there's one thing here. Update. I added a 30. I added a 30 boom in the game object. So every time if I set the position, set the scale, and set the rotate, I will also set the 30 to true. So in the update function, if the 30 is true, I will update the matrix. And the matrix of the child game object depends on its parents matrix. So after I finish the scale and the rotate and the transform, I will apply its parents world matrix to itself. So every time if the parent's matrix world matrix is updated, all his children should be updated. And this the game object. Okay, this and the camera. My camera is the same with yours. Just add and 30. Just added a 30 boo here. And the camera manager just do a little thing here. Just set active camera here, so I can switch camera. And this is the game. Oh, in the engine, I add a piece of code in the run loop about FPS, so to limit the frame counts in 1 second, to make sure it won't run too fast. And this is the game. And nothing special here, nothing special. Load content, set up all cameras, load all shaders, and the groups. Actually, looking in the demo, the first row is all in the first group, and the second row is all in the second group, and the third is in third group, and the fourth and the fifth. So I have 5 groups, and you can see here every other object is added to a group project. So here, from top to bottom. And this is to load the models and use different shaders. And the position of these project is just from the left to the right. And this is two special objects. You can see their appearance is different. And this is the update. Nothing special. Draw, unload every resources I use in my demo. Okay, and you can see after I close it, I added a memory tracking here, and it just passed. It means no memory leak. Okay, I think that's all. Thank you for watching.